Hello there, people of the internet. If you're watching these videos that I'm making, odds are you're probably a gun guy. And you've probably been a gun guy for a bunch of years, and you probably have a collection, kind of like what I have. Yours might not be as extensive as mine, but odds are you have some stuff that have kind of piled up over the years, and that's kind of the ballpark that I find myself in. So, I decided at some point, I don't know, probably about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, give or take approximately, I decided at some point, hey, I'm bored, I have the day off, what should I do? I should go through my inventory and see what I have, and I made some discoveries that made me decide to myself, hey, I should make a video that potentially inspires some people to go through their inventory and see what they have, what they don't have, and potentially what they might go out and get. So even if this just inspires one person to go through your stuff and just kind of double check and see what you got, then I would call this video a win. So I have, how do I start this? Alright, first thing I was doing was I was going through my 223 5.56 rounds just to see what I had, get ready for the next range day, see if I was due to order a case, etc., etc. And I was doing some reorganizing with some of my magazines that I had, and these magazines have been loaded for years, and they're just kind of the backup go-to mags, right? So as I was going through what I had and just seeing everything I had on standby and moving mags around, moving gear around, I made a discovery. I have a fair amount of 5.56 or a fair amount of 223 ammunition, but I don't have much in terms of 5.56 at all. And that is a big deal to me, simply because in not all cases, but in many cases, like 223 is 250 plus feet per second slower than military spec 5.56. And although with most of the things that I'm doing in my general life, that's really not that big of a deal, I like to have as much power from my cartridges as possible. If I'm going to be running around with 30 rounds of ammunition inside of a magazine, I may as well get the most amount of force from that ammunition as possible. So 5.56 is definitely something that I prefer going to. That is definitely something that I prefer using. But I've kind of migrated towards sticking with 223 just because of availability with where it is that I'm currently at and the price and whatnot, and just over the years that's kind of what's stacked up. So my 223 levels dramatically overshadow my 5.56 levels, and whenever I look at my 5.56 that I do have, pretty much all of it is 55 grain full metal jacket, and I have only like 2 magazines worth of 62 grain green tip, and that's not enough. So I'm definitely going to have to go out and get myself a case of some green tip, and that's not something that I would have realized if I didn't go through the things that I had. So after going through like the stuff that I had for my 5.56, I was like, all right, well, let's go look at the 9mm situation. And I got a bunch of steel case 9mm. I got a bunch of like dirt cheap bottom of the barrel 9mm that I just take out and use for fun at the range. Most of the things that I have are 115 grain, and I was under the impression that I had a fair amount of 124 grain, but after going through my inventory, I barely have any 124 grain at all. Like, I definitely prefer 124 grain for just in case purposes, just because it's just a round that smacks harder than the 115 grain. So that is something that I realized, hey, I don't have very much of this. I might want to look into getting myself some, and I would not have realized it if I just kept doing what I was doing and not going through inventory for I don't know how many years that this inventory has just kind of been sitting in storage at this point. But yeah, the discovery that I did not have 5.56, or at least not the amount that I wanted, and I basically don't have any 124 grain 9mm, which is what I prefer, that's something that's gotta change. And I'm glad that I went through the things that I have, because I would have never learned that. I would have never known that if I didn't actually go to inspect it. So another one, I have a bag. I call it my oh shit bag, because in the event that something happens, I'm going to have to make that proclamation. That's the bag that I go to. And over the years, I've just kind of pulled things from this bag, because whenever I set it up for, like, end of the world apocalypse, completely rebuilding somewhere else levels of situations. Like, I had pretty much everything I would ever need inside of that bag. And so whenever I would run out of something and I would need it, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go grab it from the bag and I'll replace it later. And doing that for several years, the bag became significantly diminished. And so I noticed that whenever I went through my bag while going through my inventory, seeing what I have, what I don't have, what I need, there was a lot of stuff that I took out of that bag over the years. And if something had gone down and I found myself having to bug out, relocate somewhere else, having to build a new life somewhere else, I would have been severely under-equipped, just because I've taken everything out of that bag to use in real life, in regular situations. It was more convenient to grab from the bag than it was to drive up to the store, and so I grabbed from the bag, and I never replenished. And again, going through inventory kind of showed me what I have, what I don't have, what I need. Here's another good example. I was doing some loading, and I went to go load some rounds for 303 British to run through this rifle. I have a particular series that I'm working on, and I was like, alright, I think this one here would be the best possible case and rifle for me to load things up and test things out. And I came up with the discovery that I barely have any brass for the 303 British. Like, I have some already loaded PPU stuff and some already loaded brass, but man, it's just not very much. And my unloaded brass, like my already fired needs to be reloaded brass, I just don't have much 303 British stuff. And so that completely changed the course of what it was that I was going to do with this particular series, just because I didn't have what I thought I had. I thought that I had a stash of 303 brass around somewhere, but as it turns out, I simply do not. And that's one of those things where I would have never discovered that if I didn't go through my stuff. Here's another one. It's a really good idea to keep some cash on standby. Like, no matter what it is that you're doing in life, it's a good idea to have some actual, like, hard cash on standby in your house, on your person, on your property, somewhere, just in case you find yourself in a situation where you no longer have access to your bank, or maybe your debit card gets stolen or hacked or something, and you can't use it, so you have a way to be able to pay for things. Well, I was under the impression that I had a stash of money in one of my little safes that I have around these places, but I guess I got into it a while back, probably in my whiskey drinking days, to go most likely buy more whiskey, and the money that I thought I had in there was not there, and that's something I would have never noticed if I did not start going through inventory. And these are really good examples of why I think it's a good idea to go through what it is that you have, especially if it's things that have just been sitting around for a while that you haven't taken the time to investigate and to ensure that what you think is there is actually there. Because I don't have any 5.56, I don't have my preferred 9mm, I don't have 303 British, and I don't have any money in my safe, so those are things that I have to go out and get. Some of them are a little bit more difficult to get than others, but that's probably a topic for another time. Here's another one. I discovered that I have in my inventory, I had some, there we go. There, yeah, these are nicely packed, but they can be a little bit of a hassle to open sometimes. I discovered that I had some VMAX 7.62 by 39 bullets. I would have never noticed that if I didn't go through inventory. Some 123 grain VMAX rounds. And so I was like, oh boy, that's cool. Let me go ahead and load up a batch of brass 7.62 by 39 just for fun. Let's get some of these loaded up, and I'm probably going to take these hog hunting. And this is something I didn't know that I had. Yeah, it's just something that fell below my radar. And I guess it's been sitting around for a whole lot of years, and I just so happened to discover, hey, this is what I've got right here. So there we go. Go through the things that you have, make sure what you have is what you have, and figure out what you need and make that something that you have. Besides that, I guess that's the end of this rant. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.